Baby girl, show me your vibe. Baby girl, show me your light. We need a little bit of your time.
Hey guys, it's Britt, and in today's video, this is kind of like a little mukbang. I'm eating Dunkin' Donuts right now. So, in this video, I'm gonna tell you guys how to get approved for an apartment fast. Because, you know, maybe you want an apartment in the future, maybe you're apartment searching, maybe you are in the process of getting an apartment, but it's just not happening fast enough. So I'm going to tell you how to get an apartment fast. So, I got my notes right here. Okay, so my number one tip is to improve your credit. So, I feel like your credit should be at least 700 to be like really, because the people that are choosing who gets the apartments, they will look at your credit. If they don't, then that's different, but most of the time they do look at your credit, and if they see that you have bad credit, they're going to automatically think that you can't make your payments on time. And if they don't trust you to make your payments on time, they're not going to want you to be in their apartment. So you should have your credit be at least 700 so that they feel like they can trust you to make your payments on time. I actually went from like, a score of, so I actually had been struggling with debt a little bit, credit card debt, and my score was really low. It was like 500 something, but that was because I had a lot of accounts open and I had reached like the spending limit on basically all of them, and I was only making the minimum payments. So yeah, so that was why my credit score was so low. So to raise my credit score, I basically started paying off the cards completely. And I paid off my cards from the least expensive, or like the least amount that I had to pay, to the greatest amount. And by doing it that way, it's like you're kind of like working your way up towards the biggest debt, and it kind of like makes it easier. So those are just like some tips. Like if you do have credit card debt, it's easier if you pay off the lowest amount first and then just keep working your way up until you pay everything off. So after I did that, then my credit score went up like past 700. So my credit score is pretty good right now. Yeah, so I would suggest doing that. Improve your credit. Make sure it's at least 700. My second tip is to call instead of email. So a lot of the times, like maybe you're looking at an apartment website and they have a bunch of apartments there. They're usually on the website there will be a place where you can email the owner or like the apartment person. So I would suggest to actually call them in person instead of emailing them, because a lot of the times they don't feel like reading their emails, or they're just gonna get back to you a lot slower. So if you call them, then they will feel like you're more interested in the apartment than if you email. Because anyone can email, but when you actually take the initiative to call and talk to them, then they recognize your voice and they realize that you're actually serious. So my third tip is to ask for an apartment tour at the soonest available date. So some apartments don't do tours, or like doesn't work like that, but if you can get a tour of the apartment, then you should definitely do an in-person tour before you even apply for the apartment. Before you even say like this is the one that I'm just gonna get and I don't care, always get a tour, because the way they portray it online, they want it to look perfect, but it actually may not be. In person, you can see the actual space of the apartment, what it actually looks like, if there are like certain things that the website didn't include. So you should definitely get a tour. And a tour Getting a tour also shows that you're serious too, because a lot of people don't actually do a tour. They will just apply, and when they look at the applications, they'll only see like people by their name. So if they don't know you at all and all they see is your name on this application, they'll be like, okay, I don't know you. But if you actually went on a tour, they're going to remember you, and they're gonna like take you more seriously, like that you actually want the apartment. So definitely go on a tour. And along those lines, don't go alone. So do not go alone to the apartment tour. Number one, for safety reasons, and number two, it's good to have someone there to actually be your second set of eyes. You know, like they can really let you know, point out things that you might have missed, and they can also just like be your second opinion. You know, like you might think it's great, but then they might be able to point out something that you might have missed. Also, another tip is to show up to the tour on time, because if you show up late, they're gonna think that you're not taking it seriously, and they're gonna think less of you, because honestly, you want to be like your best behavior on point, because the better you are to the apartment person, the more favorable they're gonna think of you, and the more likely you will be on their good side to get the apartment. Another tip that I didn't add on here is when you are on the apartment tour, make sure that you have your phone like with a full charge. You do not want to go there with like a dead phone. When I toured an apartment before, my phone was basically dead. The apartment tour person was texting me, and I had to it was crazy because I was literally on 1%, so I was nervous if my phone died, I wouldn't have any contact with the apartment tour person. I was trying to find him. So you definitely want to make sure your phone is charged so that you can communicate with the apartment tour person. And also you want to make sure that you can record what the room looks like when you're on the tour, because once you leave, you might be touring a lot of different places and you're gonna forget what each place looks like. So if you take a video of what each apartment looks like, you'll be able to compare later on and see which one was the most suitable or comfortable for you. So another tip is, I already mentioned don't go alone, but one good tip is to go on the tour with your cosigner, which I highly recommend getting a cosigner if you don't have one. I mean, or maybe you don't need a cosigner. Maybe you just make enough to where you can just pay everything yourself. But apartment approval people, they really like seeing a cosigner because it lets them know that you will make the payments on time all the time. Even if you can't make it, you have a backup person who's going to support you. So they really like seeing that. When you go with your cosigner, then they can see both of you in person, and they'll know that you're a team, and they'll know that you're taking it really seriously. So another tip is to keep your tour guide's phone number. Like I mentioned, when I went on one of my tours, I was on 1%, and I was trying to communicate with my tour guide person so that I could meet up with him. So definitely make sure that you have your tour guide's phone number, because that way you can meet up at the apartment on time. And it's just good to have, you might have questions for them after the tour, so it's just good to have their phone number. So make sure you have their phone number. Ask a lot of questions. Ask a lot of questions before you even show up to the tour. Once you're on the tour, and then after the tour, make sure you ask about trash disposal, about laundry, about mail, about visitors, about parking. Just ask about as much as possible, just for your own information and your own security, but also it looks good to the apartment tour person because they know that you're really serious about getting this apartment. So they really like when you ask a lot of questions. So After the tour is over, make sure that you send a thank you text the same day. So make sure you tell them thank you like the same day that you go on the tour. It's just a courteous thing to do, but it'll also make the apartment tour guide remember you and remember that you were like really serious and that you're grateful that they took out the time to like take you on the tour because they really didn't have to. Yeah, so a thank you might not improve your chances of getting the apartment, but it's just a nice thing to do in general. Okay, only a few more tips. Okay, so the next tip is to make sure that you message your tour guide, whether it's the day after the tour or any other day after the tour. Just make sure that you keep in contact with your tour guide, because maintaining contact is what's going to help establish a relationship between you and the tour guide, and it's going to also help the tour guide remember you and think more favorably of you. So just make sure, like, whenever you do apply for the apartment, just apply for it whenever you feel like you're ready, like you want to take this on. Don't apply for an apartment just because you feel pressured to. Just make sure it's the right choice for you. The last tip is just to be respectful, which is obvious. You know, they're not going to want to take on someone who's like insulting them or who just doesn't respect other people, because they're going to obviously think in the future, if this is my tenant, how are they going to treat the apartment? How are they going to like treat their neighbors? You know, stuff like that. So those are all my tips. I hope they were helpful. If you want more advice videos like this, just let me know in the comments. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.